What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Appreciate you tuning in. So today we're going to talk about how to send 1,000 plus emails per day without landing in spam. This is the updated guide as of July 2025. If you don't know who I am, my name is Pablo Melandu. I'm the founder and CEO of Vintascale, a B2B lead generation agency that specializes in using cold email to get leads for our clients. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the problem that a lot of businesses face is that they can't scale, they can't grow because they're prospects. People don't know they exist. And so ultimately, if they want to sell more or make more money, they need more leads, and not just any leads, they need qualified leads. And one of the single best time tested proven ways to get more leads and thus more customers into your business is through cold email. It's probably the single most scalable method of cold traffic. And we are not talking about ads, we're talking about cold outbound, period. So what I'm going to be talking about in this video is what we use in our agency to send anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000 emails per day and north of 1,000 emails per day for our clients. This books us and our clients north of 5+ meetings a week, and that is only growing. And this results in same week and same month deal closures for us, for our clients, and has allowed us and our clients to install a predictable pipeline for the business. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about email infrastructure first. This is the foundation of everything. This is us putting the lead machine together, the domains, the inboxes, how everything fits so that we can run this 1,000 email per day operation sustainably without everything breaking, i.e. going to spam, inboxes burning, IPs getting blacklisted, all the things we don't want to happen that are very common the more volume in emails you send. So in terms of inbox providers, the only inbox providers you should be using are Google Workspace and Microsoft 365. Google and Microsoft. Under Microsoft, there is Azure, same thing. Google or Microsoft. Full disclosure, we are experimenting with SMTPs. We will update in due time, but that's a bit more advanced. Number one thing is don't try and save money here, especially if you're getting them from inbox resellers and all that. Your inbox and domain reputation is everything, and the two best sources to get inboxes with the best reputations are Google and Microsoft, for what I hope are obvious reasons. They've just been around, they have the best reputation when it comes to navigating spam filters and all that stuff, all the stuff that we cannot see with our own eyes. That stuff matters. It does play a big part in your emails not going to spam. Okay, so next, in terms of how to actually get the structure to send 1,000 emails per day, we're going to employ what's called a horizontal scaling model. Don't worry about so much about why it's called the horizontal scaling model, but if you want to visualize it, so we get, I would encourage you, if you want to send 1,000 plus emails a day, is you get 50 domains, and then for each domain you have 2 inboxes. So if my domain is vintascale.com, I would get domains that look like hellovintascale.com, and if my company is vintascale.com, I would get domains that look like hellovintascale.com, hivintascale.com, infovintascale.com, whatever that might be. So those are the domains, the websites, right? And then I have inboxes. So the inbox might look like Pablo at hellovintascale.com or Pablo Melandu at hellovintascale.com. Those are the inboxes, the email addresses, in other words, right? So you want 50 individual domains, website addresses, and you want 2 to 3 email addresses per domain, right? And you're going to be sending anywhere between 15 to 20, we could say 25, but just to be safe, anywhere between 15 to 20 emails per email address daily. So 50 domains times 50 domains times 2 inboxes, right? Times 20 emails per day. So 50 individual domains times 2 inboxes per domain. That's 100 inboxes. And if we're sending 10 emails per day from each email address, that's 1,000 emails per day. So you're actually already going overboard if you start at 15. So we'll just downgrade this to 10, but 15 is a solid number. right? This is actually going to prepare you and give you the infrastructure to send north of 1,000 emails per day if you'd like. And so what we're doing here is we're spreading out risk, because if any one of these domains gets blacklisted, which can happen, or if any one of these inboxes, your email addresses get burned, or automatically start going to spam because the emails coming from that email address have been going to spam so frequently, or have been getting ignored so frequently, that the algorithms in Google or Microsoft are just automatically saying, hey, this is an email address that just sends spam emails. Right? If anything like that happens to any of your individual inboxes, you can swap that out. You can just buy another inbox. But all the other 50 domains or 100 inboxes that you have, they're not being affected. So that's the idea of a horizontal scaling model, is to spread the risk apart, so that if any one of those individual inboxes goes bad, the whole thing hasn't collapsed yet. So that's how that works. If we talk about architecture, domain architecture, so you have your primary domain, let's just say vintascale.com. What you want to do when you're buying domains is get variations of domains. So instead of vintascale.com, I'd get, hello vintascale.com, like I mentioned before, or hi vintascale.com. What you want to do is keep those variations believable and avoid just random combinations. We always want to think and operate like a professional here. When it comes to the email addresses, so you can mix it up. You can have Pablo at vintascale.com, Pablo Melando at vintascale.com, Pablo M at vintascale.com. Just use real sounding names. Avoid generic terms like info at vintascale.com, right? So you want to diversify it in that way. I would also recommend diversifying where you get your inboxes. So maybe split it 50-50, 50% Microsoft inboxes, 50% Google inboxes. Why? Because Google, Microsoft, they can go bad, and they will go bad any day of the week or any day of the month. Pretty much on a weekly or monthly basis, Google's doing well, Microsoft isn't, and then vice versa. Microsoft is starting to do well. Google, starts tightening up their spam filters. So you never know what's going to happen. Diversify. It'll pay off in the long run. In terms of your technical setup, we don't got to go too deep into this, but both Google and Microsoft, or if you are getting your inboxes through a reseller, all three of those options, they provide step-by-step instructions on how to configure the domains with your inboxes and all that fun stuff. There are step-by-step instructions. Makes it really easy. Just Google this stuff. Google MX Records for Google, or MX Records for Microsoft. Look up SPF for Google, SPF for Microsoft. Same thing with DMARC, DMARC for Google, DMARC for Microsoft, and then DNS for Google, DNS for Microsoft. Depending on where you get your inboxes, this is pretty easy to set up. It sounds complicated. It's not. It's really not. It's just copying a piece of information here and pasting it into where you buy your domains from and stuff like that. So it's really easy. Especially if you bought your domains, we're talking about like the .com address, right? The website. Especially if you bought those domains from GoDaddy or Namecheap or Pork Bun or Spaceship or some popular source like that. This is pretty easy and standard to set up. So all in all, I wouldn't sweat too much over this stuff. It's pretty standard, but if you're doing this yourself, you don't have to. Most resellers, if you just look up Google Workspace inbox reseller or Microsoft 365 inbox reseller, there's some popular ones that'll come up. They're rather professional. It's pretty safe to go with whatever the top resellers that come up on Google are. Just go with them. They'll set all this up for you. You don't got to worry about it. They're very good at what they do. This stuff is hard to mess up if someone else is doing it for you. If you're doing it yourself, it's also hard to mess up if you follow instructions. It's just that there are several steps and people may skip a step, and that's what you don't want. So pick your path, but just be attentive if you're going to do it yourself. Next, so in terms of actually building this lead generation pipeline for yourself or for your business, let me zoom out a little bit. Looks like it's cut off. All right. So when we talk about sending 1,000 emails per day, it's really important to understand that this doesn't mean 1,000 new contacts per day. In a typical modern email sequence, everybody gets 2 to 3 emails, right? So you send the initial email and then you'd send a follow-up email. and then maybe you send another follow-up email. So that would make 3 emails in total. We typically like to stick with 2-step email sequences. We rarely go for 3. We almost never do. So that means if we have 1,000 people we want to reach out to, everybody's getting 2 emails. So we're sending 2,000 emails, right? So that also means you got to start paying attention to making sure that that pipeline is filled. You're always scraping for more and more and more data. So most people misunderstand this point, is that 1,000 emails per day means you're going to need 500 leads, but it means you're going to, every couple of days, you're going to need more and more and more and more and more leads, right? So that multi-touch sequence, that 2-step or 3-step email sequence, it reduces the amount of new contacts or new leads that you need. I should upgrade this. It should say 2 to 3 update. It should say 2 to 3 touch points is a sweet spot for most B2B operations. If you have a 4-step email sequence, that's 250 new contacts daily. So you need to build your list procurement around that math. If you require 5,000 monthly fresh prospects, you need to start building your pipeline, some time ahead, right? I should say ahead. Now, in terms of where to get your leads, so we typically use Apollo, LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Sometimes we might go to Crunchbase. But in terms of the regular data platforms, it's Apollo, it's ZoomInfo, it's Sales Navigator. Apollo, I would say, offers the best value, for most businesses. There's something like 35 plus million companies on there, and that's companies. And there are a lot, multiple employees typically for most companies. So it's a lot of people, it's a lot of contacts on there. The money's there if you know how to use Apollo properly. Most important filters in Apollo are company size. When I say size, I mean head count, not revenue. Job titles and job roles, location, tech stack is important as well. Industry is a huge one. That's probably one of the most important. So be specific. Broad targeting, it kills conversion, because if you're talking to everybody, if you're just talking to one general industry versus like a sub industry within that, or a specific company size within that industry, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. So once you identify who you want to target, you want to export that qualified list of prospects. There are different ways to do that. You can scrape using a website called Appify, and I'll put that in here as well. And there are other websites that do this as well, but we use Appify to scrape our leads from Apollo and start messing with them and enriching with them and cleaning that list of leads in Clay. Because what you will find, clay.com, because what you will find is a lot of the leads in Apollo, they say that they're verified and cleaned, or that the phone numbers or email addresses are updated, but they're really not, right? So you want to validate those emails with Zero Bounce or something similar. We use Mail Tester Ninja. So if you have a ton of invalid emails, when I say invalid, I mean email addresses that no longer exist, or are automatically set to route your emails to spam. Any emails that aren't internal within that company, they automatically go to spam. If you have those and you're sending emails to addresses like that, it'll destroy your inbox reputation and your IP reputation very quickly. So you want to avoid that. You want to clean up your lead list. So check out Zero Bounce. Check out, there's Million Verifier, which we don't use. Check out mailtester.ninja, and you'll be okay with any one of those. Okay. And then you want to format your leads for the upload, and we'll talk about that more in another video. But this is, again, really just cleaning company names, making sure all the information is there, because sometimes when you scrape leads off of Apollo, the website's missing or the phone number is missing. So whatever you might need, you just want to make sure that's all cleaned and formatted and ready to go for you to update upload into your campaign. Pretty standard, pretty straightforward. You'd be surprised as to how many people skip the fundamentals. That's why we're just going over all this. If something isn't working in your infrastructure, your campaign, it's likely because you're skipping one of the points that I mentioned in this video. Most people think they've checked off all these things, and this was me when I first started. Can promise you that if something's not going your way, if something's not going right, you probably didn't do one of these things. Or if you did do all these things, you didn't do it to the right amount of depth or standard that it should be done at. Without digressing too much, let's proceed. So now in terms of the platform, the automation platform, or the email sending platform. So you want to choose an email sending platform that allows you to rotate your inboxes. This is pretty standard amongst all the popular sending platforms nowadays. So the instant leads, the smart leads, you can just do this manually. So you can just pick the email address, the inbox accounts that you want to use for a specific campaign. Really easy to do. So when we talk about inbox rotation, let's say you have 100 inboxes, 100 email addresses in there. Use 50% for month one. So half of those for month one, while the other half is just left on warm up, and then you swap that for month two. Really standard. We can go more about I can't speak today. We can go more in depth on warm up in another video, but that's really just not using those in active campaigns. Next, you want to set your sending limits for each account. So make sure you're not going over that, let's say 15 to 20, 25 email limit per day. I'd be as conservative as possible until you feel really good and really comfortable about your copywriting. Next, you want to vary or you want to pick a platform that allows you to monitor the deliverability, that allows you to send different versions of emails. So version A, version B, version C. Again, going over the basics here, but all the major email sending platforms like the smart leads, like the instant leads, they let you do all this stuff. So I wouldn't be too worried. You also want to choose platforms with proven track records. Again, like I mentioned, I wouldn't worry about this. Platforms that allow you to use Spintax, integrate things like Slack and webhooks and automation. They all let you do that nowadays. So you are fine on this part. Safe to say you can breeze through this. Now, when it comes to making sure that your emails aren't being marked as spam and that they're not being what's called fingerprinted. So fingerprinted is when Google or Microsoft algorithms have decided that you're sending the same email, the exact same carbon copy email over and over and over again. How do they know? Because they mention that you use the exact same word or start the sentence in the exact same way in this email, and then you do it again in the next email, and the next email, and the next email. And they decide that that's your fingerprint. That's how they know it's you, and they are now qualifying you as a spammer because they've identified you as a person, and they realize that you as an individual are sending thousands of emails a day, which is next to impossible if you're just doing that on your own manually. So they conclude that you're now just sending automated emails, and they conclude that because of the fact that you're sending automated emails, that it's automatically spam that nobody wants. So that's fingerprinting. You don't want that for obvious reasons, because it'll mark your stuff as spam. It'll ruin your reputation. So now when you try and send an email with a lot of substance and an offer that can actually help people and businesses, it'll say, nope, because it's you and we recognize you, we're going to automatically route it to spam. So you don't want fingerprinting to happen. Let's talk about how we combat that. Number one way is Spintax. Spintax and different versions of the same email. So Spintax is creating multiple versions of each element or each sentence or each phrase or saying. So you're going to randomize your greetings, your openings, your CTAs. You're going to Spintax everything. The nice thing about this is you can just write one version of your email, copy it, paste it into ChatGPT, and tell ChatGPT to Spintax it, just like that. Hey, Spintax this, paste it in, and it'll give you something like this. So it'll randomly select hey or hi or hello, right? It'll randomly select notice, saw, found. It'll randomly select company, business, work. So it might look something like, hey, Pablo, noticed your business and thought I'd connect. Right? So it'll randomly pick one of these options per group of variables or group of bundle. Right? I hope that made sense. So the benefits of this is it appears that a human wrote it to spam filters, because if you can imagine, there's so many different possible combinations, even just with this, so many different possible combinations that can come up with, that can happen here. So it's very difficult for Google to say, or Microsoft to say, hey, I recognize this person, and this person's sending thousands of emails per day, right? So it appears human written to the spam filters, while allowing you to maintain consistent messaging and allowing you to scale this sort of personalization of emails effortlessly, thus reducing the risks you might run into when it comes to deliverability. Now, best practices. So we do all this. Why? It's to mimic human behavior. We want to mimic human behavior by making the emails, number one, feel natural. Number two, not be the exact same carbon copy and fingerprint all the time. So using Spintax. We also want to mimic human behavior by using realistic sending schedules. So don't send or try to send only during business hours in the recipient's time zone. One mistake I made early on in my journey is sending at 5:51 a.m. for some reason, or sending at like 3:30 in the morning because I forgot that I'm sending it to a person in Australia or New Zealand. So I set it for 9 a.m. our time, but really it sends at like who knows when in Australia time. I don't know the time difference, but it would be like, I don't know, 1 in the morning or something terrible. or 8 in the afternoon or 10 in the evening. 10 at night for someone on the other side of the world. So be mindful of that. You can avoid that just by picking the right schedule and then selecting to send it respective to the recipient's time zone. Use authentic email signatures, no images or nothing fancy like that. Just type your name, your company, your job title, and your company name. Also, try not to send identical messages. So we talked about that when we mentioned Spintax. If you're using new accounts, I would warm up the emails gradually. There isn't a hard rule for any of this stuff, but just ramp it up slowly. So maybe in week 1, you start with 10 emails, see how you do. 10 emails per inbox per day. Week 2, you ramp it up to 15. Week 3, you ramp it up to 20. So like that, just pace yourself. The patience will pay off. And maintain that list hygiene. So anyone who says do not contact or anything like that, or unsubscribe me from your list, get them out of there, remove them. Just don't follow up with them, and respect that. Anytime something bounces, most platforms nowadays, so SmartLead instantly, they'll remove contacts that have bounced and stuff like that. So you won't run into that issue of sending emails and follow-ups to contacts that have already bounced. Okay. So in terms of implementing all this, you want to start with the basics, the foundation. So get all the inbox accounts, the email accounts, and the domains, and make sure they're configured properly with step-by-step instructions that can easily be Googled. Thankfully, in 2025, you want to set up your automation platform. All this really means is just get an Instantly account, get a SmartLead account, and start creating those initial email templates. And you can just start off with, if you're a total beginner, you can get an email template from, I don't give out templates, but you can get them from, just Google them. You want to source and validate your leads from a place like Apollo. You want to segment by the ideal customer profile. So who exactly you want to be reaching out to, whether it's C-suite or anything like that. And then you want to run mini campaigns. I wouldn't send it to all 5,000 people at first. You want to run mini campaigns. So of that 1,000 emails per day, maybe you run 4 different campaigns of 250 people each, just testing different offers, testing different segments of that market, right? So it could look like boutique staffing firms. It could look like giant staffing firms, solopreneurs in staffing, things like that. I'm just naming a random industry. Launch your campaign, of course, starting with a conservative amount of emails and scaling that volume gradually while maintaining or monitoring the metrics, the reply rate, things like that, positive reply rate very closely, and then using that to optimize. Ideally, you don't want to change anything about a campaign until it's fully done so that you can get the truth of the campaign. And then you want to optimize based on that. I talk a lot about how to optimize campaigns based on what your results are in my more longer, in-depth videos. Key performance metrics. So bounce rates are one of the primary ways, and reply rates are one of the primary ways to check where you are ranking in terms of deliverability. Okay. I wouldn't worry too much about inbox placement rates, spam folder percentages, because you never really know about any of that stuff. And another metric I would say are positive reply rates. So I'm going to post that here, and then positive reply rates. In terms of reply rate, depends on what offer you're running. This is not a hard rule, but you want to, in 2025, I would say get ideally over 0.8% consistently. Bounce rates, you want to stay under 3 to 5%. And then positive reply rates, ideally you want to aim for above 20%. But again, these are not hard rules. I have campaigns that have done really well for us that have been under 0.65%. So just be mindful or keep it relative to what exactly the offer is, because different offers are more saturated than others. And then last but not least, in terms of critical success factors, things that are going to make or break your ability to send 1,000 emails per day consistently is list quality, the content. So list quality is the right people. Content is the right offer and the right messaging to those right people. And then you want to monitor all of this, because sometimes what we think we want to do and our strategy is totally different from what we're doing in practice, and it doesn't go as well as we planned, or sometimes it goes even better than we planned. So you just want to adjust and adapt. So really high level overview of how to send 1,000 emails per day. I will say this, and I wish someone had told me this sooner. If you find that you start sending 1,000 emails per day, and you launch your campaign on Monday, and you're seeing, let's say you run a full campaign over the course of Monday and Tuesday, your reply rate is, let's say, 1.2%. Cool. I'm fine with that. We can scale that. And then by Friday, you've ran a few campaigns over the course of the week, and then by Friday, your reply rate is like 0.3%. Look at it this way. Either your inboxes have burnt out and your deliverability is completely shot and ruined. I wouldn't jump straight to that conclusion, though. I would first take a closer look at how good the campaigns are, how good the copy is, how good the offer is, how saturated the offer is on the campaigns you started out with early in the week versus late in the week. It could very well be that you got lazy on the campaigns that you ran later in the week because you got busier and busier and busier and busier. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're having deliverability problems. Okay. So there are a lot more things that you need to pay attention to the more emails you send. But the good thing is the more emails you send, the faster you will learn, because the faster the information and feedback comes through about how good you are at cold email, how good your offer is, how good your copywriting is, so on and so forth. And that will show itself in the metrics. This is all just learning how to make sense of the data. So I hope that helped. If you have any questions, leave a comment. If you'd like to speak to us about how we can help you set up your cold email infrastructure or manage it, I'll leave a link in the description so you can book a free strategy session with myself. All right, guys, that is all for today. See you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.